everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that has the monsters to turn that frown upside down. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian. That was pretty good.
Thank you. I thought so. You'd think after all these times of talking about the same show, you'd run out of witty one-liners for that show. But I feel like I've got, for Stranger Things, I've got at least 80 of them.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I think this is only the fourth most frequently talked about show after The Office, Friends, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and Lost.
That you named five shows ahead.
Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, I'm counting as one universe.
That's still five.
Okay.
All right. But still, top five, right? Right?
I believe so. And if I'm wrong, just let us be wrong. It's not that important.
Hey, did you know that Joe Keery is siblings with Ben? What's his name?
Ben Schwartz.
That's it.
Everything back. I mean, that's hidden early days. I hadn't even watched Stranger Things at that point when you said that, so I had no reason to dispute you. I'm like, okay, that must be true.
And now he's realized he needs to fact check me because I just lie. I just get on here and I lie. I've got a bunch of research I've done for this episode today. It's all going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. No, this is so. I probably shouldn't say this because then it'll make it'll seem like I don't care about other episodes. But this type of episode is my favorite type of episode. I love talking about our most influential TV shows. And honestly, we're not the type, Brian, we're not the type that is let's look at the algorithm and figure out how we can boost our engagement and know exactly how to do it. All these things to draw in listeners and maximize all this likes and subscribes and all that sort of crap. That's not us. We just come on here and we do our thing. And then the people who come on and listen to it, they like it or not, and they can decide if to share it. This is one of those episodes that I know exactly how we could put this on here to really boost our engagement, because what we're going to talk about, the way that we're going to do it is similar to a video essay. Just take our audio and then put a bunch of B-roll footage of Stranger Things in it that correlate with what we're talking about. Get a really cool thumbnail and have one of those arrows pointing to a Demogorgon, the thing you didn't know about Stranger, whatever clickbait title we'll come up with. And we really could get a lot of engagement because people love Stranger Things, or at least they have. Whether they love it currently or they grew up on it or they were a part of the Stranger Things craze, it was such a big part of our zeitgeist for the last 10, 15 years. And what we're going to talk about is how it really has changed the way that we intake entertainment.
Well, in the past holiday season of 2025, when the new season 5 was coming out, I was down a deep Stranger Things rabbit hole. I rewatched the whole show with Sabrina, and then I was on YouTube on my own, because this isn't her thing, doing exactly what you said. Let me find out all the extra information. Sometimes you watch it, and it's I already know this. Damn, next.
Yeah. And I'm watching it right now with my two oldest kids, Jack and Elijah. And so both of them have been on our podcast before. I think only a couple times though. But we're in the middle of season 4. So we just had the running up that hill with Max episode, and she escaped the upside Vecna's curse and all that stuff.
Oh, that's a great one so far.
It's a great moment. Yeah, loved it. But they're in the middle of it, so they're enjoying it. They love Argyle this season, of course, because how do you not love Argyle?
I think he was used the right amount.
Yeah.
If he used more, and if he came back in season 5, it would have been too much.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just fine for season 4 because, and we'll talk about season 1, how they did this, but every single storyline, they kind of put those characters into an 80s movie. And so they actually had National Lampoon's Vacation for season 4, and they put Will and Jonathan and Mike and Argyle into the National Lampoon's Vacation storyline. That was what they were doing that episode.
Well, and their call sign in season 3 was Griswold Family Vacation.
Yep. Yeah, that was when I was I cannot believe we got to this. Just how I couldn't believe that we had a Back to the Future theme in season 3.
Mm-hmm. And we even got Muppet references.
Yeah, we did get Muppet references.
No Power Rangers, because it's the 80s.
But. No, come on. We don't go that far. So this is a show. It is now getting close to about 10 years old. So we're gonna talk about the history of it. We're gonna talk about why this show deserves the title of most influential TV show. I'll be the first to admit that that's a little bit clickbaity. Like, that's just the title that we've had. We've had a couple different shows we've talked about that really are so influential. And this is massively influential, but it doesn't have kind of that same staying power that we had like 50 years ago. But it really did change the game in terms of media content. And so, yeah. So we flash back to July 15th, 2016. That's when the first episodes of Stranger Things debut, come to this Netflix streaming service. And that's not even where our story should start, because the Duffer Brothers, the year before that, they had been looking to get into the game. They've been trying to grow their filmography and do some great things. They were able to do this horror movie that they wrote and directed a year before that, back in 2015. Now they grew up on M. Night Shyamalan. So M. Night Shyamalan, if you haven't seen his movies, he started off swinging. He started off with Sixth Sense, and then Unbreakable and Signs, and then all those movies,
The Village,
depending on who you talk to, are really good. I thought they were all really great, and he kept doing this thing where he'd have some sort of twist in it that whether you saw it coming or not. When The Village came out and people saw that twist coming, that's when his credibility starts to go down. And honestly, he's a little bit of a victim of his own success, because I think he felt like he had to have a twist in every single episode or every single show he did.
Yeah.
And so they really loved the atmosphere that he'd set up, and they loved the storytelling that he did. So they tried to emulate that in this movie that they wrote and directed called Hidden in 2015. It didn't really do all that well. It didn't, wasn't that panned. You probably anyone who's listening to this, you probably haven't even heard of it. Brian, have you heard of Hidden?
I have not.
So there you go. I hadn't even heard of it when I came into this. And so, they're a little downcast at that, but they had a chance after that to actually work with M. Night Shyamalan, the guy that they were trying to emulate, because someone higher up saw this, was like, hey, this has that M. Night Shyamalan feel. M. Night Shyamalan's actually doing this TV show right now called Wayward Pines. Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard of it.
Okay. So that was a couple of seasons, and they got to work on that with M. Night Shyamalan. They got to glean from the master himself. And so in that process, they kind of redefined this little script that they had been working on. And it comes to be what we later know as the Stranger Things pilot. And so they have it's only 20, 40 pages or something like that, somewhere in between that. So they're working on this pilot. And as they're doing their stuff with Wayward Pines, they start pitching it to these network executives. And every network executive kind of says the same thing, right? That they all are like, okay, you've got two different things. You've got this adult supernatural horror, and then you've got these kids that are running around. It's like, this feels disjointed. This either needs to be a kids show aimed at kids, and so you got to tone down the horror element, or you've got to take the kids out completely, and you've got to focus just on Hopper and his exploration of the supernatural storyline. Yeah. And the Duffer Brothers knew what they had, and they're like, that doesn't sit right with us. I don't feel like that would have. It would be just like another drop in the bucket, So along comes Sean Levy. You know who Sean Levy is, Brian?
Yeah, he's one of their. He's their third in command, their one of their executive producers.
Yep. Did you know what things he'd worked on before Stranger Things?
I have no idea.
So he's actually really prolific. He worked on, before Stranger Things, he worked on movies like Cheaper by the Dozen and Night of the Museum. Since Stranger Things, he directed Free Guy. He directed Deadpool and Wolverine, which one of those movies I just named was not like the other three. Let's be honest.
Very much so. Until you said Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm like, kind of lighter movies.
Yeah. Oh, all those fun ones. Oh, and then that one. Okay. Yeah. He had a lot of TV experience too. He was a showrunner for the classic Secret World of Alex Mack from Nickelodeon in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And Famous Jet Jackson, as well as a couple of, he has a pretty big filmography. Look him up, Sean Levy. He's worked on a lot of things. So he has a wide variety of stuff. And actually he was working with Netflix at the time, because he was also a showrunner of a show called The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Did you ever watch that at all?
I did. I think once is enough, but I watched it.
Yeah, I don't think I finished it, but I liked kind of the general start of it. Was that also a Tina Fey vehicle as well? It was Sean Levy and Tina Fey.
I believe so.
It has a very Tina Fey-esque humor to it.
It really does, especially since there's a lot of 30 Rock people in that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, he's working with Netflix, and he's like, look, Netflix has been working on these. They at this point have done their own shows. So we can't say that Stranger Things was the first like original content created for a streaming service, because I believe that goes to House of Cards, and that was a very calculated move by Netflix. They're like, we need to come up with our own programming as well. This is our next step in building our library. So they ran this algorithm to see, hey, what are people loving? What DVDs? Because this is back when Netflix would send DVDs to your house instead of having it on your screen. But then they started moving into the online streaming service we know today. And so they look at all the information they've collected along the time. And they came to realize that this BBC show, House of Cards, was something that people would be interested in. So they adapted it for a United States audience, and they put it out there, and it was a pretty successful show. And so they've had a couple of ones. Orange is the New Black was another big one that they had before.
I think about that one, yeah.
But all of those, they kind of had these big name producers. Netflix at the time when Levy came to him they were looking for who are some people that maybe we can take a risk on. We can take a chance on one or two of these ones and try and see if we can get like strike it good with some of these other talents. And so Sean Levy's like, hey, these guys, they're still fresh, they're still pups, but they've got something here. And they brought it to Netflix, and Netflix is like, yeah, this works. I think that would be a good show. And so they kind of were negotiating, and they realized this isn't a 22 episode show. This is something that if we tighten it up, we can have it be like a long movie, which really that's what Stranger Things seasons end up being.
Basically, like a trilogy, maybe not even a trilogy, like a sequel.
Yeah, exactly. If they only focused on like one of the storylines that they did each season, then maybe they could do it like as a little bit of a longer movie. But they usually have 3 different storylines or so.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they realized, okay, we got this Stranger Things show. We need to do something with it. We like this. And so then they needed to discover the name. So does the name Montauk mean anything to you, Brian?
That was what they originally wanted to name it.
Yep. Do you know why?
It's from a movie.
It's pretty sure. Jaws.
Ah, gotcha.
So Jaws is probably one of the biggest influences on Stranger Things season 1. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But like, Montauk was the city in New York that they filmed, that they turned into Amityville or Amity. I think it's just Amity. I can't remember the exact. It's something like that. That's the fictional town from Jaws.
Yeah.
So they were gonna set it in New York, and in that Montauk place, and I can't remember. I didn't write it down why they moved that, but they're like, no, it's got to be more Midwest. They move it to the Midwest, put it in Hawkins, Indiana. It's like, okay, with that change, we then have to change the name because we can't call it Montauk. So then they tried to we're like, well, let's do a Stephen King name. How about Firestarter? And then that didn't work out. And then they're like, well, let's do something like a Stephen King one, which is instead of Needful Things, one of his stories, they changed it to Stranger Things.
I mean, it just fits. I mean, not the fact that that's all we've known it as, but I think it fits.
Yeah, I mean, think about when the first time you heard that, because I remember. Do you remember the first time like you had ever heard of Stranger Things? When was that?
It was early on. I didn't watch it till after season 3 came out, but I had heard of it, and I may have actually been in Brooklyn Nine-Nine when Jake Peralta was like, "Huh, you get to meet the kids from Stranger Things? Did you talk to Dustin?"
Yeah, I remember someone posting online about Stranger Things when it was first out, and it was someone that I trusted a little bit more with their opinion of entertainment. Like, if you love 80s stuff, this is such a great love letter to the 80s. And I'm like, I'm not a horror guy, but I love the 80s.
That was my hesitance too.
Yeah, exactly. I knew a lot of people that was the case, and that makes sense. And a completely valid reason to not watch it. However, it ends up being a little bit tamer than, although until later seasons. In the first couple of seasons, it's a lot more tamer as a horror, first and second season for sure.
And then they got a budget.
and then they got a budget. And then there's like, hey, Vecna's going to lift them up into the air and break all of their bones and pop their eyes out. I'm like, that's a little much, guys.
Well, even before that, you had Billy getting impaled by the giant spider monster that was made out of dead people's flesh.
That wasn't as bad as actually watching the people explode and then get absorbed into the mind flayer, or to watch the rats blow up and then the squelching. How many times in the captions do we see the word squelching in this series? Squelching intensifies.
Yeah, wet squelching.
It's like, oh, good, more squelching noises. That captionist, they love the word squelch.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we land on Stranger Things. According to the Duffer Brothers, behind the scenes, there still was some contention about that title, but whatever. Mm-hmm. All right. So then we get into season 1, which, upon reflection, season 1 is definitely the tightest season, because every single season they kind of spread them out because they have all these characters that they have to do stuff with, and they have to do new pairings, right?
And they add characters, but they don't kill as many characters as you think.
Yeah. What if you had to commit to it right now of saying what your favorite season, or maybe even if you had to rank them, because that's even more fun. Before we get into talking about season 1, how would you rank the seasons?
I think I would go 4, 1, 5, 2, 3.
In order of best to worst?
I think so.
I'm almost flipped, man. I like 3 because I love the mall setting. That really saved it for me. The mall setting. There's a little bit like we've talked about how annoying Erica is in season 3. 4 and 5, she's much better, but season 3, she's a little much. And so
it's a game of inches, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I just didn't connect with that season as much as the other ones. But I mean, it's like A+ to A- basically.
Yeah. So I think 3 is best to me. Then 1. Because 3 is like that 80s action movie vibe too, which is why we've got the Miami Vice feel of Hopper.
Yeah.
And the Terminator attacking. Mm-hmm. It's like you take Terminator, Miami Vice, and Red Dawn, and you kind of have all of that for the action blockbustery feel.
And you get basically Murray doing a Die Hard cosplay.
Yeah. You do. That was great. Like the one thing that I didn't care as much about that is the Jonathan and Nancy with the zombies, like that, the Day of the Dead homages that they did.
Yeah, their storyline was pretty weak.
Yeah. So I was like 3, then 1, and then 5 because I think it stuck the landing, and then 2 and 4.
See, 4 just seemed like if they amped up the lengths of the episodes, they really banged up the pressure, and I don't know. It felt like they put into a new direction. So that one I think is still going to be my favorite.
Yeah, 4 for me, the reason why it's the lowest is just because how spread out it is. When they take it nationally and they take it all across America, and we have stuff happening over in California and in Hawkins, and then the Project Nina in the middle of the desert somewhere, it just felt a little too sporadic.
I get that, but also I love how they all the storylines converge on fighting Vecna in the very end, and they're all in their own different ways.
And that's why season 1 to me is as strong as it is, because season 1, I felt like the storylines converged the best of any of the season. Because they tend to do that. It was like, okay, we've got to bring everything back together. It's all going to be in the same. But 1 felt very focused compared to any of the other ones.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So anyways,
1 was my number 2. But go ahead.
There you go. Look at us. Yeah, we can agree on number 1 being our number 2. There you go. So season 1, it's kind of pitched and has been said a number of times by the Duffer Brothers. Their influences are very obvious. Like the kids, they said the kids are in E.T. / the Goonies. So everything with the kids feels that way. The teens, they're in like Halloween / Nightmare on Elm Street, which again, they went back to the Nightmare on Elm Street with season 4, especially by getting Robert Englund in. And when you thought, oh, he's actually Vecna, Robert Englund has to be Vecna, right?
Yeah. Nope. It's his son.
Surprise. Which is also thematically great.
Yeah.
And then you have the adults who are a mix of Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Mm. To the point that Joyce is based off of Richard Dreyfuss's character from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, with her manic, like, no one believes me, I'm going crazy sort of thing. And then you have Hopper, who is based off of Chief Brody from Jaws. And so both those characters are drawn directly from those shows. And to the point that there is a shot from season 1 of Hopper's truck pulling into the police station that if you put that side by side with the shot of Chief Brody's truck coming into a police station, they would look almost identical.
And that's cool. Those are fun Easter eggs for the people who love that stuff.
Yeah. Which is me. Like that's what brought me into the show. Like I'm watching it in the first season, then I see that on Facebook because my algorithm's like, "You're watching Stranger Things. Here you go," and I'm like, "That's a cool shot. Love it."
Yeah.
So we have season 1, and the Duffer Brothers. They are able to deliver on what they wanted to do. They really wanted to drive home this emotional heart, as well as all these great references, as well as all this great nostalgia. Because do you remember the first time you watched it? I don't know about you, but I remember like seeing, for instance, Mike the Wheeler's kitchen and being like, I saw that lamp. I've seen that upholstery. My grandma used to have that couch. Like all of those things, right?
I wasn't in anything specific, but it's like as a vibe, you're like, okay, these are people who knew the 80s. Like it's more like I feel like I know what that room smells like.
Especially the downstairs when they're playing D&D. And you're you preteen boys playing D&D for hours. This is going to smell rank.
If they had Axe spray in the 80s.
All you got to do is you push the button down once and you get the whole can all over you. That had no brakes on it.
Nope.
So we have that come out July 15th, 2016. It's this massive success. It's huge. It is, I think I wrote it down. It had 8.2 million viewers within 16 days. That's a lot of viewers within 2 weeks. I don't know if I was in that first 2 weeks. I was early enough to it that I had the weight of go from season 1 to season 2. And I remember I was working at a bank when season 2 came out. And a guy came up to my window and he's like, my debit card isn't working and you have to figure this out by tonight or by tomorrow or whatever. And it was the day before season 2 of Stranger Things came out. And I just knew, I'm like, Stranger Things. He's like, yeah, actually. And like his entire demeanor changed. Like he was so mad that we would like had this problem by like, don't worry, I know why this is important to you. And then we got things settled for him and everything. But it's just like, it's funny. You just bring up Stranger Things and suddenly he's like, yes, I love that show. It's great. I'm so excited.
Which is interesting because if you asked me not knowing it, which I didn't, when it became a massive success, I would have said that season 1 was a mild success enough to get season 2. But then season 2 was the big success because season 3 is when you see I think you see a big change in like budget and production value. So I would have guessed after season 2.
You definitely see that. I think the reasoning, if we like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, how much the production value was from season 1 to 2 and 3. But let's say that you're correct, because you're right, it does feel that way. Let's say you're correct and that the production value significantly increased from season 2 to season 3. I think if we're putting ourselves in the producer's mindset, you think, oh, season 1 was successful. Let's see if they can do this again. And when they did it again and it was again successful and it had that same numbers, like, all right, we've actually got something. We're going to funnel money into this. Because you do also have to remember, it was early on still to see how profitable are these shows. And I'm sure there was this cheapness to this online created content because no one had ever done stuff like Netflix was doing at that time.
And season 2 also, I mean, you got 2 big 80s gets with Sean Astin and Paul Reiser. So that shows the success right there.
Yeah. I mean, you had a lesser extent. You did have Winona Ryder and Matthew Modine. They're not, to me, I don't put them in that same ballpark. Winona Ryder more so.
Yeah,
I don't put them quite in that same ballpark as Paul Reiser and Sean Astin.
And I think David Harbour is a big name because of Stranger Things.
100%. Same with the teens too. Like now, especially Finn Wolfhard and Gatton Matanzaro.
And Millie Bobby Brown I would put in there too.
And you're right, Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah. Who played? What's his name? Who played Lucas? He hasn't really gone.
Caleb McLaughlin. He's doing modeling. I think he's in a different direction.
Yeah, and then Noah
Schnapp and Sadie Sink. Sadie Sink did a bunch of stuff.
Oh, I haven't seen Noah in too much. I've seen Sadie Sink start to be in more. She's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. And then not to mention Joe Keery and then Maya Hawke. I haven't seen the woman who plays Nancy. I haven't seen her bust
Talia
out.
Dyer.
Yeah.
You didn't see her as 9-year-old crazy obsessed fan in the Hannah Montana movie?
I did not see that. No. Okay, who would you say? I think David Harbour, we'd have to say, has to be the big star benefit from all of this. Like, the others have been in stuff, but I think he's been in the biggest stuff, right?
I think either him or Millie Bobby Brown is really taking off.
Yeah, she's been in a number of things. She was in that Godzilla sequel. She was her own Enola Holmes. What else has she been in that was pretty big?
I should probably know this.
I'm making you bring the receipts, Brian.
I just know that her name has been out there a lot, and I'm pretty sure out of the kids, she got paid the most.
I would say, honestly, even Maya Hawke has gotten more stardom, in my opinion, than I think Millie Bobby Brown has.
Probably. I mean, without Stranger Things, she probably wouldn't have been Anxiety in Inside Out 2, which was a pretty big role.
Sure, she still is a Nepo baby. She is the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. So, I mean, she was always going to be fine, but she actually has the talent. It's refreshing when you see someone who does have those opportunities handed a little bit more to them, actually be able to back him up with talent. Lewis Pullman is another one that he's a really great actor. Yeah. And thankfully.
I don't know if you've watched the Malcolm in the Middle reboot, but Finn Wolfhard has a small part in it. And I guess he was just like, let them know I'm a big fan. If there's anything you can do. And they're like, yeah, we'll find a part for you. And that's literally how he got himself in the Malcolm reboot.
Nice. I think I heard that was also how, spoiler for anyone with Mario movie, that's how Glenn Powell got to be Fox McCloud in the Mario movie.
Oh, yeah?
Both him and I heard Donald Glover both went to Mario's like, hey, can I be this character? And I think they're like, all right, let's make it work.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of celebrities, like big name people, who would be like, just put me in any Star Wars thing. You can make me a stormtrooper without my face shown. I don't care. Just make me in Star Wars.
Like Daniel Craig in Force Awakens.
Yeah, and I know that I don't think he's gotten it, but I know Donald Faison from Scrubs really wanted to be in Star Wars, and then Zach Braff was in Star Wars instead.
What was Braff in Star Wars?
He did the voice in was it Mandalorian? Or no, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think. He used the voice of that monster who was driving like the pedicab.
Okay. I don't remember because I only watched Obi-Wan once.
Okay.
I'm sorry to people who loved it.
At the time, I was listening to their podcast. I don't listen to it anymore. I kind of fell off of it. But at the time, they were talking about how, like, I wanted to be on it, and now you're on it.
So, yep. So that's the history so far of Stranger Things up to that point. But the reason why we're talking about it is because we're talking about how did it influence. And so let's look at the effect of this runaway success. So, I mean, you look at the things that it influenced. So we've talked about how this changed the game for streaming. This was, I believe, like the first really bingeable TV show. Because we've had, up to this point, we did have TV shows that would put all of their episodes online at once. Like that's how House of Cards dropped. That's how Orange is the New Black would drop. But I remember like Stranger Things took it to the new level. And that's really what you're going to see. The common thread of all of this is that Stranger Things was the most successful show on Netflix up until Squid Game came out. And it ran away. Every single season was always like top debut, like broke new numbers because people just loved this show. And so we would not have the success of streaming television without Stranger Things. Like name any streaming show, like shows that came after this: Squid Game, Mandalorian, White Lotus, The Boys, Severance. All of these shows would not exist without the success of Stranger Things because they showed you can take risks on this new property. And sure, they gave you familiar things like the 80s nostalgia. Yeah. But go
ahead.
Go ahead.
Was Stranger Things before or after Cobra Kai?
It was before Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai was on YouTube Red before it was on Netflix, but Cobra Kai debuted in 2018.
Okay, so I mean, I can definitely see some, 80s nostalgia mixed with, kids battling things out. I could see some DNA there too.
And that's a really good call because that is for sure, like that is more akin to Stranger Things than any of the ones that I named, but it really just gave us the formula because no other show or company was scrambling to create content like this until Netflix did it first.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing that we just said about the increase of the budget from season 2 to season 3. I'm sure producers and network execs were looking at Netflix when they did House of Cards or Orange is the New Black, and they did these shows are like, let's see how that goes for them. And then once it started getting more and more popular, and then especially once Stranger Things showed them, Stranger Things, like you look at movies like Black Panther. Black Panther showed network executives that if you have a heavily black cast and that is aimed at a wide market, you can be profitable. Because up to that point, we didn't have a ton of movies that were like a full black cast, but aimed at any race, any ethnicity. And that black movies had to be for black people. And yeah, they'd turn a profit or whatever, maybe, but they weren't like $1 billion movies. No one would be like, oh, a black cast, that's going to be $1 billion movie. And then Black Panther's like, excuse me, yes, you absolutely can have that. And so Stranger Things did that for us, where it's like, yes, you absolutely can change the game in how you present your content.
And this speaks to the most influential part of it, because one of our previous most influentials was Seinfeld. And after like in the late 90s, early 2000s, because of Seinfeld and Friends, how many like bombardments of early 20 people in an apartment shows did they try? 1 billion of them. And like a handful of them succeeded because they wanted to cash in on the Seinfeld and Friends train.
Yeah. Exactly. And so we, you know, it's not like they invented something new in terms of Stranger Things. It's in terms of the actual story that they did. Like, it's not like suddenly we saw all these kid heavy shows, although we did see shows that featured kids or teens, but we've always had those, right? Like this isn't a new thing of having a kid cast in an adult themed drama.
But kid cast in a way that's not Nickelodeon Disney Channel.
Exactly. And the 80s actually, like the 80s gave us the blueprint because we had movies like Stand By Me or Goonies that, yeah, sure, they're aimed like they could skew towards kids, but like Stand By Me was R-rated, right? And so it was an adult themed show that just had kids as a main talent, and that you kind of felt like this, like it felt real, you know, like kids swore because back in our age back when we were their ages, we swore, not in front of our parents because we get like slapped in the face and brought to church because we grew up there, but we swore and we would hide and like, oh, that's how we talk, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And all of our rebellious stuff was like, we didn't fight our parents with it. I think, speaking of you, we just tried to hide it to varying degrees of success.
Yeah. And so this whole idea of binging a show really came about because of Stranger Things. And that's not the only one that made it like great. Like we've seen now so many other shows that are binge worthy, 100%. But we wouldn't have that blueprint of success if it wasn't for Stranger Things' success. But that's not all that it influenced either, because this also, again, it's not like the only thing that did this, but if you can mark when we as a society came into the 80s nostalgia era, it started with Stranger Things. We have such a love for the 80s right now, and we have shows like The Goldbergs. We have movies like Cocaine Bear or Adventureland or Take Me Home Tonight or Ready Player One that are all about this 80s nostalgia, and it comes back to Stranger Things.
Yeah, but with that, I was waiting for this moment to talk about it. The brilliance of it, though, is so Matt, you're watching the show with your sons, and I'm guessing your sons maybe don't have a giant wealth of 80s knowledge, maybe like a targeted little bits of 80s knowledge. Am I right?
Yep. So like they love Back to the Future because I love Back to the Future. So when we got to season 3 and they come into the movie theater and there's Back to the Future on the screen, my kids actively like perked up, because also, side note, we just went on a cruise a couple months ago, and the show that the cruise had was Back to the Future, like the musical on stage. And that's so cool. Because it was really aiming towards that, they also had in the cabins, they had a TV channel that just did nonstop Back to the Future. 1, 2, or 3. It would just play those on repeat over and
like
over.
Your heaven on a Disney cruise, right?
It was. Oh, this was a Royal Caribbean cruise.
Okay. But
And so they started getting actually a little bit more into it. And Elijah, my oldest, knew that there's a Back to the Future trivia that they're going to do like on the last day of the cruise.
yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to study and I'm going to beat dad. And he actually got like a perfect 20 out of 20 for the questions. And so it came down, because he was on a different team, it came down to a tiebreaker between me and him. And so I'm like, this is very fitting. I still beat him because, you know, no one's going to beat me. But
all right, I'm going to get to my point, but here's how I picture that. Okay. I picture you in a thought bubble saying like, I could really make my son's day and let him win. And then like, no, the answer is this. Screw you, I win. I mean, not screw you, but you know what I mean? Like, that's how I picture that.
He's 14. He can cope with some loss. I didn't have I'm going to go easy on him. I was like,
yeah.
But I will say, if he would have beaten me, I would have been proud. 100%.
Oh, absolutely. But my point is, you can watch Stranger Things and not get the references. I'm sure there's more references that you and I didn't even catch. And it doesn't sully your enjoyment of it. The stories work on their own as well as being an homage, because it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And it's actually, to me, part of the fun. Now the story is, for the most part, well written. Part of the fun is like seeing what are they going to go for this season? What movie are they drawing the connection to? Oh, season 2, Exorcist. Well, that's the 70s, but it still is okay. Well, that counts.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And some of those, like, I haven't seen Exorcist, but I know enough to know that was Exorcist. It was like very blatant.
Yeah. Season 4, when I was like telling the kids like what season 4 is, like the different ones that they're doing, I got to the stuff about like in the lab, and I'm like, I don't know which movie that they're doing with this Russian lab. I can't, or it's not Russian anymore, but I can't
Project Nina.
Yeah. Project Nina stuff. And then the Russian prison as well. I'm like, I know there's been prison movies. I'm not like a big, like, I watch these prison escape movies. I wonder if like maybe it's The Great Escape with Steve McQueen, but that's a little bit before the 80s. But you know, like at the same time, they also did like this Wizard of Oz / with the Wrinkle Before Time thing in the next one. And it's like, that's not quite 80s either, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so you've got all this TV and music and movies, and exactly to your point, it brought the appreciation back. And you're like, oh, I should go check out this movie, especially when they like show you clips of it right then and there. And you're like, oh, this Dawn of the Dead movie that the kids are watching. What? I wonder if I like zombies. I'm going to go see it.
Which something you don't think about. Just the clips of movies and the amount of needle drops, the amount of songs they put in, that's got to be crazy expensive. It's got to be like half the budget right there.
100%. Like the needle drops have to be the biggest cost, especially early seasons. Maybe not in the final season when they were able to really devote money into the visual effects too.
Well, they also got Purple Rain.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is a big cost. I could see their cost for other things and like having to pay their actors and everything increase, and needle drops stayed the same throughout the series. But
yeah,
you're right. There's a ton of needle drops.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of needle drops, before we get to, because we're going to talk about music and how it influenced, there is a song, and do you remember? Not, of course you remember. So you know how the show ended. Spoiler for the final season, especially the final episode, that we think Elle died, and then Mike's like, "Oh wait, no, Elle didn't die. This is what I choose to believe. I believe that she's living this way." And they kind of make it seem a little bit like maybe you could decide your ending, and that's really how Angie took it. But I'm like, I don't think so. I think they were like literally telling us this is how it ended, but that's just how the writers were able to tell us, right?
I don't know. I can see it either way. I kind of think that they were telling us that's how it is as well. Because even, as much as I don't think they should do a straight up sequel, they left the door open that they could do a sequel about Elle in wherever, Sweden or wherever she landed.
So you maybe have heard this, but this is in the camp of Elle is 100% alive. So the song "Heroes" by Peter Gabriel is played in this show 3 different times. Have you heard this?
No, I knew the song was played in the credits, but
so the first time it's played is in season 1, I think end of episode 3, whichever episode where the end of it is they find Will's body in the quarry, and then they believe Will is actually dead. And so Joyce is crying at the end because Jonathan catches her and like is holding her, and there's this Will is dead. They play the song "Heroes." Guess what? Will's not actually dead. Fake out. The second time they play the song "Heroes," end of season 3 in that
Hopper.
montage when we're talking about Hopper and he's reading the letter, and we think, oh, Hopper died because of the explosion. Guess what? Hopper's not really dead. Surprise. Third time we hear the song Heroes is after all the stuff about Elle and living her best life. Maybe, who knows? We think maybe she's possibly dead. And then they play the song Heroes. So I think that's concrete evidence that they're saying we play this song every time we're trying to fake you out with a death, but they're not actually dead. So that's why I'm saying she is 100% alive.
Okay, I want to audit your theory a little bit. So I know they played the song in the end credits at the very end of season 5. Did they play that song when we saw 11 at like the waterfall area?
Because I think it went straight from that into it, right?
Was that the last shot? I thought the last shot was Mike looking down the stairs after all the teens went up from the basement.
Oh, maybe, but it still was like quick on the heels. You know, it wasn't during the like she's alive thing. It might have been the orchestral version, and I wasn't paying attention to it in the background.
I'll give you that. Actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that might be more thought than the Duffer Brothers put into it at the end, but I like it. I like a good hidden theory like that.
Isn't that internet culture though? Like someone who was behind the creative process of it looks at someone's like, "This is the reason. That's for sure." It like, dude, that was a mistake. That's just a happy coincidence. All right.
It's because like one time it's right, and then you're like, I want to be right. I want to catch something and be able to say that I predicted it.
But these needle drops did like bring some of this 80s music. Not that 80s music ever went anywhere. You can tune into any classic rock station. You're going to get plenty of 80s music. People love their 80s music. They always have. Since the 80s, that is, by always. So there's some great songs. Those like Heroes is a fantastic song. But like Should I Stay or Should I Go was a big part of season 1 into season 2, was a big connection between Jonathan and Will. And like that was one of those that had this resurgence of popularity. And you could point out a couple different needle drops where you're like, oh, this had this big resurgence of popularity. Yeah. But what's the one that we have to talk about in terms of resurgence of popularity, Brian?
Well, I think every season has one, but none more popular than Running Up That Hill from Kate Bush. 100%. Right? Yes.
Yeah, because Kate Bush, like, did you know who Kate Bush was before that season?
Nope. I've never heard that song.
Hundreds. I'm with you. So like she just had this huge outpouring of fans because that it's not that it's such a good song because it's a good song, but the way that it was used was so satisfying and was such a good thematic moment. And Stranger Things did such a huge blessing and gift to Kate Bush to make her be as big as she is again. And so she saw like her royalties just shoot up from before season 4 to after season 4. And since then, she's made it rich again. I don't know how rich, but she got a lot of money from her song being in Stranger Things.
And that probably led to Prince or Tiffany or something feeling, well, it worked for her. Yeah, use my songs.
Exactly. And yeah, season 5 was the one after that. And you had said that no one had been able to use Purple Rain. It's outside of Prince using it in the movie Purple Rain, that no other movie had been allowed to use that as a needle drop. But I can absolutely see the estate being like, we saw what it did for Kate Bush. I'm okay if they use it in that sort of way to get some Prince fans again. Which, by the way, we are recording this on April 21st, the anniversary of Prince's death.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's 16.
So 10 years?
Yeah, I know that because I can track it down to where I was living, because I was living downtown Minneapolis when that happened, and you could hear people singing Prince in the streets.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so 10 years ago today, Prince died. Not to you guys. That was back on April 21st. Just a little behind the scenes for when we recorded it.
All right. I listened to our episodes from years ago, so we're also in 2026. If you're listening in like 2035.
Look at you going back in time, like Doc Brown himself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's also, I want to talk about real quick brands, because believe it or not, that 80s resurgence and watching this show brought about a increase in Levi's, Converse, Vans. All of those had an uptick in sales from Stranger Things being on the air.
I didn't think Levi's ever went away.
No, they never like. Yeah, they didn't go away, and maybe you can say this is conjectural,
Okay.
like. But this was even from Forbes. Forbes had done the research and named those three specifically. This was an article back in 2016 that Forbes did. That after Stranger Things season 1, they saw this massive increase in stock price and the revenue of those three companies specifically. And one thing that I also want to talk about, then I think like Stranger Things knew that as well. And they must have had a partnership. I don't know for sure. Actually, no, I think because Coke came out with their new Coke again after season 3, or in conjunction with season 3 in 2019, that they had that new Coke. It was a spectacular failure back in the 80s. They even tried to bring it back again in the 90s, and it only was around for a little bit and then still wasn't successful. And then Stranger Things is like, hey, we're coming out. We want to draw attention to new Coke. It's going to feel very like that's how you advertise for a brand in universe, is that they had a conversation about it and it felt very how the teens would have talked about this new sort of drink they're getting, this new Coke. Well,
kind of, but I think Lucas was putting the ad copy on pretty thick.
Okay. That's fair. But in conjunction with those episodes, Coke released half. I think I saw that it was only like 500,000 cans that they created in conjunction. Like, okay, we'll sell like 500,000 cans, including some in vending machines in California. But people jumped on their website after those episodes so fast that it crashed Coca-Cola's website to be able to order this new Coke. And so it showed that they had the right idea back in the 80s, but they just were not, our taste buds were not quite ready for that, because now our Coke flavors or our pop flavors, they're all across the board. There's all these dirty sodas. There's all this sort of stuff in our drinks that are unique. And it's no longer just the like 5 different types of drink that you like with your soda brands.
Yeah. Also, the weird thing though is that the failure in the 80s might actually add to it, because it's become such a infamous failure that everybody knows about it. That the notoriety of it, maybe even if it was negative, could have helped that brand in a weird way.
That's such a good point, because it reminds me of that Rick and Morty like conjunction with McDonald's when they had the Szechuan sauce or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. Yeah.
And then that didn't go past like Mulan being in theaters, and then Rick and Morty references it, and then there's such a big viral campaign that McDonald's brings that sauce back, and then people show up in droves to McDonald's dressed as Rick and Morty characters just to get that sauce. Strange times we live in.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a classic spicy buffalo guy for my nuggets.
There you go. Which yesterday was the anniversary of chicken nuggets, so April 20th. How do you
know all these anniversaries?
Because I study dates, man. Today is also April 21st, 2026 is the 40-year anniversary of Geraldo Rivera opening Al Capone's vault on national television live, and it being filled with nothing. And so just a huge whiff of storytelling.
I know that story. I just didn't know the date.
Yeah, it's today. All right. Well, we're not talking about Geraldo Rivera. Last thing I want to talk about is an aesthetic, because like cultural aesthetics, especially like in corporate culture, what I'm very sick of, I don't know if you're sick of this, Brian, I'm sick of going to like a McDonald's or a Gap store or like any corporate setting. And it just being very bare bones, being like white walled and like upscale, modern, minimalistic.
I miss the chairs at McDonald's that were buns.
Yeah, exactly. I love the off the wall absurdity. And that's a little bit more 90s than some of that absurdity. But in the 80s was very colorful. It was filled with life and vibrancy, to the point that, yeah, like neon was a choice, but people made that choice quite often. Mm-hmm. And so with the success of Stranger Things, it did open the doors for some cultural things to be more colorful. Look at Marvel movies pre-2015 and then post-2015. After 2015, here are a couple movies that came out. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, and then Avengers Endgame. Like, I remember Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok specifically not being afraid of color, not being afraid to look like a comic book movie,
Yeah.
and to be as garish and bold as they were and vibrant. And I'm not saying that is only because of Stranger Things, but Stranger Things and this love of 80s brought back this appreciation of color. Like in the Barbie movie, sure, Barbie was always going to have very colorful outfits, probably. But in the movie, we see that beach ensemble that her and Ken are wearing that is that bright pink and like just straight out of the 80s. And it feels like it is a direct response to our love and our passion for 80s nostalgia.
Oh, 100%.
Final thing, I missed this when I talked about music, but look at music soundtracks. How many movie soundtracks are now using a synth score and have gone back to that feel? Because we still have plenty of orchestral compositions.
Yeah.
But there is a lot more synth used in our intros, like the Stranger Things intro, which is a great intro to begin with. That is in and of itself, that intro was very influential.
Oh, it goes right back to the 80s, because I think of 80s or Stranger Things when I hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've seen a lot more of these synth scores, even in dramatic moments, because prior to Stranger Things, you hear a synth when it's supposed to be an emotional moment, and it almost takes you out of it a little bit. Like back when I would watch 80s movies before Stranger Things, I'd watch it and be like, all right, well, this is an emotional moment, but the way that they're playing like that, just I don't feel emotional anymore. But somehow Stranger Things was like, no, this fits and we're going to make it work. And they did. And now we see that in a lot more movies than we ever did before. All right, I left the door wide open for you to jump in there, Brian.
Sorry, I was looking at a text. What was the last thing you said?
I don't know.
Sorry.
We were talking about synth scores. I just wanted to see if you had anything else to add before we move to the next thing.
Nothing specifically about synth scores. Sorry, I hope I'm interjecting enough. I'm still not feeling the greatest, but I'm trying to give my thoughts to it too.
Yeah, the only negative to me about episodes like this is that it's less dialogue and more monologue.
Which why I don't feel as bad about like interjecting with my thoughts, because I feel like it's more you than me, but I feel like I'm holding my own a little bit in this conversation overall.
You're absolutely. It's not a contest, but we all know I'm winning. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I had the Muppet Sesame Street stuff that I definitely led on that one.
All right, well, let's talk about something you can contribute a lot in: nerd culture. That's the final thing that I felt like Stranger Things was influential in. Now, I wouldn't. This is the one that I wouldn't give all to Stranger Things in the rebirth of nerd culture, because we've slowly seen since the mid to late aughts, like 2006 on, we've started to see that nerd culture become more and more a part of our regular culture.
Yeah.
Because when you and I were in high school and middle school and we were nerds, we didn't fit in. We were weird. People didn't like us. Like, I'm speaking for both of us, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, I can imagine, because of our nerdiness.
Yeah,
we didn't go to a lot of parties.
And then, are you leading up to Big Bang Theory?
That's actually a really good poll too. I don't know what I would put as like, this is the definitive change. I think this was a gradual change. I just wanted to mark that Stranger Things was a part of that change.
Oh, absolutely. I think it elevated it. So you had, Big Bang Theory, Freaks and Geeks, or even like the D&D episodes of Community, which is another show we talked about last week.
Which was in 2013. Was that just a little bit before Stranger Things came out?
Well, no, the first one was in season 2, which would have been like 2010 or 11.
I looked it up earlier, and I looked it up when Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out, and I believe it was.
Well, there's two of them. There's one in season 5 and one in season 2. It was
2011. Why am I? Oh, yeah, maybe it was the other one that I looked at. Yeah, that was 2013.
2013 looks right for season 5. But yeah, there's those ones that kind of got into like, oh yeah, like D&D does seem kind of cool. It's still like, how do you get started in that world? Because you feel like you have to have somebody who knows it. Or another one that did that was the IT Crowd as well, which is not as well known of a show, but one that you and I both love.
Yeah.
And I've heard, so I listened to the Pod Meets World podcast, which I've referenced many times. And I'm sorry, I wasn't feeling great earlier, so I didn't look it up as much as I should. But there was a they were talking about a D&D campaign that was created specifically for Stranger Things, like as a Stranger Things themed Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I think you can go and like maybe be the characters and like, I mean, which is brilliant because it's the perfect jumping off point.
And that's what's great about D&D too, is that like, so one thing I did with the kids, and I'm not as good with like the dungeon mastery version part of D&D because I don't know a lot of these stats and I don't know where they kind of pull these builds from. So I just kind of was making it up as I went along. But for my family, I created a Disney D&D where I like took everyone had a different character they wanted to be. I think my wife's Ariel, my daughter was Vanellope von Schweetz. Jack was Buzz Lightyear, I think. Miles, our youngest, was Mickey. And so like you get all these characters that they love, and then you get to put them into like, so Belle Goes Missing was the first episode that we did. She goes missing, so they go and they try and find her. They go to the castle and they're like fighting different things in the different like characters that are specific to that, and then getting help from like Lumiere. We did one where they went under the sea now because then it led them to Ariel's, and so they're swimming under there. They meet up with Dory, and she leads them to this other spot. They had to fight Tamatoa from Moana, and so it was a lot of fun to be able to just pull these different elements and create a story for them, because that's the beauty of what D&D does. And so like it was great to see a show bring D&D back into our cultural awareness because of all the possibilities that you can do with that.
Your game sounds like, and Sabrina's going to kill me for not knowing the name of this, but what's that Disney video game? Something Dynasty or
Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts. Kind of sounds like Kingdom Hearts in D&D form.
Which is so strange because I started on Kingdom Hearts and I couldn't get into it. And I'm like, this is like literally, I love Square RPGs and I love Disney. How am I not like enthralled with this? And it just wasn't my bag, I guess. I don't know, man.
I've tried it, but we didn't get the first ones. We want to go back and get that.
Isn't it so sad when it's like something that's like, you should love this. The whole makeup of it is stuff you love, but it doesn't land. Sad to me.
Absolutely, yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, it's the jumping off point. It makes nerds cool again. It makes it. I mean, there are always going to be the people like Hopper who's this, oh crap, D&D again. But way more often you see like the let your freak flag fly and like just be yourself. If that's nerdy, cool. It's way more acceptable now than it was in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, and Lightning in a Bottle, like the podcast, one of the most successful podcasts about D&D, because it would make sense to do a podcast where you're doing the D&D. You're telling a story, but it's like improv, and you get the right people in it. It can be a lot of fun. So one of the most popular D&D podcasts is called Critical Role. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So it's pretty popular, but it came out actually in March of 2015. So it wasn't specifically influenced by Stranger Things, but how fortuitous of them.
Oh, yeah.
They came out 2 months or 3 months before Stranger Things kicked off and made Dungeons and Dragons as big as it was again. And so their first campaign in Critical Role lasted until October of 2017. So that like they've been going strong pretty much since they came out in 2015. But it's like how the right exact time for them to come out was the time when people are getting back into D&D, and I'm sure that really contributed to their success. Of people like, oh, this is so much fun. How do I find more information about this? Boom, Critical Role, it's right there.
I feel the same way about D&D that I feel about Star Trek. Like there's so much out there that it feels daunting to start, knowing like I could watch like 2 hours of it and I'm like, what, 0.1% done with it?
All you've got to do really is like find someone who's done it before and be like, if you've got a campaign, I'm willing to jump in. And then you just like, that's how I got into it. Okay. And even then I don't have like a D&D group. Like I kind of wish I did. It'd be a lot of fun to have that. Because anyone who's listening to our podcast knows how fun you and I are. So imagine us as characters in this weird world.
I feel like once I get to a point of understanding it, then I feel like I would like, kind of like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, sure, it's daunting in terms of like the minutia of it and like your stats and stuff, but that's really not as big, especially if you've got a good dungeon master who's kind of walking you through it and helping you out. Like that's not as big of a role as it is just like to have fun in what you're doing. Like you can do anything you want. Combat requires a little bit more of that. But there's a lot that happens in between combat to combat. There's a lot of story that happens, and you can do whatever you want. My very first session, we didn't get out of the village for like an hour and a half because I was like bullying this kid who was just trying to eat a carameled apple, and I like kept messing with him, and then I made it like come alive and like scream in his face, and he dropped like I was such a jerk to this random kid that doesn't even exist.
Sounds. I totally believe that.
And then we're finally like, okay, it's time to leave. Oh, our session has to be done for tonight. We didn't get to anything.
Sounds about right. But yeah, I mean, I think as we're talking about this, you can't deny that Stranger Things definitely falls into our pantheon of most influential shows in a given category.
Yeah, exactly. Because of how streaming services work now. Like, sure, now we're back to streaming services are like, well, when we come up with a new show, we want to keep our numbers, we want to keep retention. So we're going to do one episode at a time per week or whatever. And so they've leaned back into the cable idea. But Stranger Things was this huge, like, dump it and then just binge it and watch all of this and go through it fast.
Yeah.
And so, like, they like doing that and training ourselves to consume content like that made all of the other companies like Disney, like Apple, like Amazon even take notice and said, we need something like this. We need to provide our own answer to those. And Stranger Things took like the temperature of the streaming war and cranked it up to 11. And no pun intended with our character. And
I didn't notice that.
And so that's why you see HBO Max come out 4 years after that, Disney Plus come out 5 years after it. Like you and I, you said that you didn't recognize Stranger Things was as big as it was until after season 2, and that was like 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And so like within years from that, we had, instead of just 1 or 2 streaming services, we had like 90.
And Stranger Things for me got into my rotation of like rotating obsessions, whereas like for a lot of last year I was way into Stranger Things. I was rewatching it, looking at videos like I said, and then I kind of put the gauntlet down a little bit. Luckily it's recent enough that I didn't have to pick it back up for this. It's fresh in my mind. But like, Squid Game was one of the things, Marvel, Star Wars, even Wicked to a smaller extent. Like I'll have like for the few months, that's basically I'll be like temporarily obsessed with it, and I'll put it away, and I'll maybe a year or two later, I'll get back into it. And it's just on a cycle. And Stranger Things is probably on that cycle.
So, Brian, name a show that is 20 years old, or the pilot was 20 years old or older, that you feel has the same cultural, because when we think of Stranger Things, now Stranger Things is done. So after like a couple of years, it's going to fade a little bit because that's just how we work, it's not right in front of us. So it's not like, oh, Stranger Things. So where do you think Stranger Things will go down in terms of like other shows? What's another show that it would feel like that's a good comparison for their popularity?
That's a good question.
Because I've actually got one that I think I feel really good about as an answer.
Okay, let me think for a second. I could even see honestly, I could even see The Office as another. To some people that's sacrilege because The Office. I mean, we love The Office, but I think that's one of those shows that they could both show up in like the top 20 best shows of all time.
Yeah, I think Office has a little more rewatchability than Stranger Things. To me, I would say Stranger Things, I feel like in 10 years from now, it's going to be in the same like way that we think of Lost now. That Lost was were you going to say that?
I was thinking it, but I was trying not to be super basic because we're both Lost fanboys, but absolutely. I've rewatched Lost so many times.
And Lost is a great show, and it was game-changing at the time. But like nowadays, there's plenty of people like, oh, I've never watched. Like teens will be like, oh, I've never watched Lost. My kids have never watched Lost, and I don't know if they ever will. Hopefully, they do because it was great. But even if like they do watch Lost, you'd be like, it was a different time when that came out, and so it is a bit of a time capsule, and not just because it for Stranger Things. Not just because it's stuck in the 80s. It's a time capsule for the 2010s.
Sabrina and I have said that we're waiting with Lost because she's never seen it until we're married and living together and we can watch it more consistently.
There you go. But yeah, Lost is very much a bingeable show. That is
absolutely.
And that actually worked against it when it was on network TV, because like their schedule, when we were watching it, they'd be like, oh, then this episode aired and then they'd have a month of break. And you're like, how did you go a whole month between the answers of that episode and the next one?
Especially, I got into Lost between season 3 and 4, so I got to binge the first 3 seasons all together on the DVDs.
Oh, yeah.
And then season 4 is like, oh, week to week? That sucks.
Well, I think it was Boone dies in season 1, and then there's a month between that one and the next stuff as we get to the end of the season. Yeah. And like that's why when they got to season 3, they did, okay, in the fall, we're going to do the first 6 or 7 episodes, and that's going to be week after week after week. And then we're going to put our break all at once. And that was like a month and a half break. So after they're done with like the island and like
Hydra Island.
Yeah, Hydra Island, and Jack snips Ben's thing, is like, I'm gonna let him die if you don't do this, and like that sort of thing. Is like, oh, what's gonna happen? Then boom, a month and a half, and you have to wait, or 2 months, or something like that.
Well, it got extended because of the writer's strike.
What?
Didn't they get extended because of the writer's strike? They took their break, and their break got way extended.
It might have. I just knew that they had planned to have it as 6 or 7 together at the front and then the rest together at the end to make sure that people weren't mad that they had to wait so long on certain things. So they planned out their break instead. And that didn't work super great either, because those first like episodes of season 3 sucked, but then once it came back from the break, then they all were pretty great after that.
Yeah.
All right, but we're not talking about Lost anymore. We were talking about Stranger Things, and that's all that we have about it. Very much an influential show. It has 100% changed the way that you view television, whether you know it or not. We would not have our television be the way that it is now if it was not for the success of Stranger Things.
True.
So let's jump into trivia. Do you remember what trivia was last week, Brian?
Yes, last week we talked about Community Season 2, and we talked about who are the 2 actors from a different show that made cameo appearances in the finale of Community Season 2.
We've talked about Community a lot in this episode, and we've talked about Lost. We could talk about Lost more if we wanted to talk about Josh Holloway one more time.
Yep. Thank you for vamping, because I'm looking up their names. I know the show.
Thank you for vamping. You're welcome. This is what I do.
So those cameos are Dan Bird and Busy Phillips, who were on Cougar Town at the time.
Busy Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
That's a name.
Goes all the way back to Freaks and Geeks days.
Speaking of Bill Lawrence shows, I am watching that Scrubs reboot. We're gonna do an episode about like the reboots that we've had, because we had a it's not a reboot from Muppets. That was a revival. Is that
it was a one-time special, and if it went well, Disney might do more, but we're still waiting on if they're going to do more.
Which they should, because it was great.
Me too. I agree.
So we'll talk about that Muppets episode. We'll talk about Scrubs, this new season reboot that they did, and we'll talk about the new Malcolm in the Middle one. Is that the next episode, or is that in a little bit from now?
I think it's one after. The next one we have the pilot versus the finale of Friends, and how the show changed from beginning to end.
Look at that. You are getting all sorts of information about what's coming up. So that'll be good for next time. And then the time after that, we're going to talk about those nice reunions, or those nice reboots. I have not watched any of the Malcolm in the Middle one yet, but I've heard good things about it. So
I liked it. I wouldn't give it an A, but I would give it like a B-.
I would give Scrubs an A so far. I'm not completely done with this season, but I'd give it an A so far. Maybe an A-. There's a couple nitpicks that I'll have that we'll talk about when we get there.
I think Scrubs is one of the best of those.
It is. They do a really good job. One thing that we haven't done yet is our trivia for this week for Stranger Things.
Nope.
So when Winona Ryder was booked for this show, she was excited to be on it, but she did have one request. And so she had a caveat in her contract for filming stipulations. And the question is, what was that caveat?
I feel like I've heard it, but I have no idea what it is.
Well, I don't know if I should I'll give you a hint. It has to do with another 80s property. So there you go. Anyway, well, that is it. That is Stranger Things in a nutshell. And this is a Stranger Things outside of a nutshell. I'm in Stranger Things, I'm out of it. I don't know what that was. Anyway, until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.